Namrata, thank you so much for joining us today, and it's wonderful to have you on Candid Coffee. It's been some time since we've had an amazing Candid Coffee guest like yourself on board, so thank you for joining us and welcome.
Thank you so much, Arvashni. Pleasure to be here.
Wonderful. So, Namrata, let's kick this off, and I'd love to learn from you, and I'm sure all our listeners would love to learn a little bit more about you. And what makes you so unique in all the value that you've brought to yourself and to the communities around you?
Oh, well, I mean, it's a fun story and it keeps developing every year. So it's a pleasure to share that with your audience, and maybe some people might relate to it in one form or the other. But my story is essentially that I'm the daughter of a diplomat. So I grew up pretty much all over the world, and that shaped my early years into kind of defining myself as a global citizen, as I still do, because I got to see a lot of perspectives very early on in my life. And as I started growing up, I started planning, where do I fit best? What do I want to become when I grow up? And I realized I had so many different interests that how do I actually hone it into a single profession? So it was a massive nerd level obsession with science, biology, computers. And then there was this extremely creative side of art, art, sculpture, and all those different kinds of things. So, like any other teenager, I was very confused. And I said, what can I do that kind of brings these two things together well? And I happened to realize that maybe dentistry is a good option for me because it kind of brings my biology love, and then it brings this art and sculpture thing into the picture, because to be a dentist, it's actually a lot of intricate handwork, and you need to be extremely good with precision in order to be a good dentist. So I chose that, and I told my parents, you guys go ahead. I'm gonna stay in India, which is my mother country. It's the longest I was able to stay in India and up until that point. And I started doing my dentistry over there, practiced for a few years, moved to Slovenia, and then finally found my roots in Switzerland, where now I've been settled for about a decade. And that's how my movement's been going for the past many years now. When I was in Switzerland, I realized that all that dental work, that clinician's life, the patient service that I had honed, unfortunately could not be practiced, because in Switzerland, the rules are that you have to redo your education from scratch. And that's how you have that opportunity to work as a clinician again. And I said to myself, I love it so much, but I need to be financially independent. And that's who I am. I need that independence to define me again. You kind of lose yourself if you, in my case, I felt that I would lose myself if I'm not financially independent. And that's where the journey in corporate began. So I stepped into the med tech sector. Essentially, I became a clinical regulatory and marketing consultant for all risk classes of medical devices. And
Mhm.
that's a journey that quickly rose. So I rose very steeply in that corporate journey. And what I realized at the end of it was that, hey, wait a minute. I'm doing all kinds of medical devices, cardiovascular, orthopedic, software as a medical device, but I had zero dental projects. And I said, I have that itch because it's such a strong part of me, and I have such a strong skill set of dentistry within me. How do I bring that in? And this is something I often do with my life, which is, I'm having this itch. How do I bring that in into something valuable and productive, for the overall society? And that's where this idea for my venture, for my side hustle came up. It happened during COVID, as it did for
Right.
thousands of other people. And I said that, okay, I'm going to open my little freelance side hustle, and I'm going to start helping dental product companies with their marketing efforts, and maybe explaining end user perspective, because I am their end user, being a dentist myself. Plus, now I
Mhm.
have this massive understanding of the med tech space. How do things run in the background? How do manufacturers actually make a device? So I brought all of that into my skill set, and I kind of launched my own little side hustle, where I was essentially supporting these dental companies. And then finally, last year, I said to myself, I said, you know what? I understand the pain points of the clinical world. I've lived it, I've been through it. Dentists need, people assume all dentists are millionaires, which is actually not the truth. Some people will be shocked to learn that the highest suicide rates in the world, dentistry pops up at number one. A lot of people don't know that.
My gosh.
Yeah, so if you Google profession with highest suicide rates, you'll be surprised to learn it's doctors and dentists at number one. And then you had that other side of dentists aren't paid enough. A lot of the stress comes from the fact that A, you're cooped up in a very closed space, day to night, all day, every day. And then you're not earning what you need to earn to have a stable family life. And
Mm,
that's one of the key pain points that I recognized in the clinician space. People get bored after 15 years. It's same old, same old. They need variety, they need
right.
opportunities to grow their careers. But the taboo is, you know, if it's a dentist, then you're supposed to just do that for the rest of your life. And people are afraid to
Right.
out, right? So that was the pain point here. Manufacturers, they barely speak to dentists when they're making products. They barely speak
Mm-hmm.
in the medtech space. Clinicians come at the sales point. That's when they really get introduced to the product. So I said, we need to fill that gap. So that's when the idea for the platform came up. So now I'm building this platform. It's the first of its kind, where essentially we're bringing clinicians with easy access to dental product companies for various kinds of projects. And that's what I do now. And along that journey, in my previous role as an executive in a startup, I had to deal with a lot of the board directors, the board members. As part of my role, I was leading their clinical regulatory strategy. I was VP marketing as well. Um, and a lot of those conversations just I had that eureka moment. And I said to myself, I am so comfortable in this environment. I am supposed to be in these rooms. And it was really
Absolutely.
that realization that led me on the journey of why can't I be in a board, you know?
Right.
And that's where that idea for the board came up. And I was literally searching on Google, where do I start? I don't even know where to begin. And as they say, the universe, the ethers, dropped Veblen's ad right there. I think it was on my LinkedIn feed or I don't know where I found it. It was somewhere. And I just said, okay. And I clicked, and that's how I entered Veblen. But
Wow.
yeah, that's a long story, long version of my
What a journey,
journey.
Namrata. What a journey. I mean, words that jump out at me as you speak are entrepreneur, innovator, clearly board member as well, right? From everything that you've also shared. But it's very clear that you have an ability to see a place where nothing exists, right? You can identify an area, a white space, an empty space that someone needs to step into, which is incredible. Just and that's just from you sharing your journey. What I also got from the story, which I thought was really, really fascinating, and I'm excited about these words, Namrata, right? Use the words like precision. I
Mhm.
could see the need for independence that comes out from you as well, but also a deep-seated reflection time,
Oh, yeah.
reflective person, right? And I'm thinking, how does precision, independence, and reflection sit up against innovator, entrepreneur, board member? And they feel like there's a lot of synergy there. Tell me, how do you see it? Do you see a lot of synergy in how all of the different parts of you come together?
Absolutely. And that's part of my other efforts, which is around authentic leadership, because all the keywords that you just mentioned are essentially, in my opinion, the way that leadership is being shaped for the current, present, and the future, based on
Mhm.
what the people need in terms of what do they expect from the leaders of tomorrow. So
Right.
a leader who is focused on innovation, long-term thinking, but also has an ability to reflect, to be authentic, to be honest, to be transparent when needed, and also taking accountability and responsibility, stepping into those different roles. That's what I speak about as part of my other efforts, which is how do we create more authentic leaders? And the first step is you have to first step up and be that person, learn the journey, as you
Absolutely.
continue on your own path and then be that example for others to follow. That's usually the best way to get the traction going so that people can see that here's also another kind of leadership. It doesn't always have to be about um, hustle, 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 which I've
Mm.
also done trying to enter the corporate space. It's not easy to have a very dental CV and then get your foot in the door. But as I joke, I said I have really big feet, and I just jam the door, and then I'm like, well, it's there now. You can't really get me out of it, and that grit comes. The more rejections you have to build that grit, and through that,
Absolutely.
that reflection is probably part of my behavior. Maybe it's a part of my personality, but it's very core to who I am. And I am a very deeply reflective person. I think it all is building me into the kind of leader that I wish I had, of course. And then hoping that someday it could possibly be an example for others to understand that this is a very secure possible kind of leadership in a corporate space which has a
Absolutely.
reputation to it. So all the words you said 100% are accurate in explaining who I am. And I just hope to make those my virtues and my values as I move forward.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. As you are sharing your approach to authentic leadership, and you had spoken to earlier on, in your involvement with board members and how you said to yourself, I can see myself in this space, right? Um, Tell me, Namrata, how has your journey, your board journey been
Mhm.
thus far?
So it all started with Weblen. As I said, it was right post, right moment at the right time when I was exactly looking for something like Weblen to pop up on my feed, and it did. And I funnily take that as signs from the universe that okay, well, let's take it over. The board journey has been there's a different kind of communication that happens in boards, and it's the learning curve for anyone who starts on any kind of board position. There's the learning curve is also around certain elements to how a board
Mhm.
functions. So Weblen, through its program, the director program, essentially provided me with those tidbits on how do I actually, I need that understanding. So the base knowledge, the foundation knowledge, and then how do you position yourself um, to actually attract those kind of opportunities? So both those things were met by that director program. And then it's a question of how motivated are you really to start along that journey. And I think there's so many misconceptions. My early learning was there's a lot of misconceptions that people have around, um, if you're a board member, you need to, uh, have equity or some kind of paid position immediately, and there's certain places that won't take you because of your age, gender, whatever reasons, and there's a lot of
Mhm.
mindset blockers that a lot of people have. I had some of those blockers, and I was questioning that, is it really possible for someone like with my background to actually dare to be on a board? And then as you walk through it, you realize that no, it's all about your mindset. You really need to it's your confidence, it's your abilities, and it's like any other profile positioning activity that you do during your career, which is put your profile in front of the right people and then deliver your value when you're talking to them. So that was where Veblen stepped in early on, and I understood these intricate details. And then, of course, I my first position was actually establishing, Veblen's next step towards its own board advisor. So I'm currently sitting on the board of advisors for Veblen, the company, and I'm supporting Callum and his executive team in driving their mission forward, which is also similar to my business because they've also got a community to manage, and it's very similar businesses. So I thought it's a great learning. It's perfect synergistic value because what I learn, I feed to Callum. What I learn from Callum, I feed into my business. It's the perfect synergistic relationship that we are benefiting from each other. And you want that. You want that with the boards that you sit on because it's not all about giving, giving, giving. I am not essentially
Absolutely.
100% an advisor all the time. I don't think that's even possible. You also want to gain. You're building a relationship, hoping that it leads to something long lasting in the future. And that's how the journey with Veblen has been. And in that period, I also got another board advisory role for a company called Grace to Grow. It's a different experience. It's about supporting high-risk women in finding their footing, and Grace to Grow is doing a fantastic job at building a flagship program where they're training, uplifting, and providing resources to a lot of women globally to take that step for themselves. And it's a value that I hold deep in my heart around, getting women out of the rut, getting them back into execution mode, supporting them, get them financially independent again, managing emotions, managing the ups and downs, and then the smarts, the skills, upskill yourself, get more tools in your bag. So it was again a very natural fit with the executive, the CEO, Heneka, who's we're matching at a value-based level. That also helps a lot.
Absolutely.
And bring
Absolutely.
more to the table for each other when you're in those conversations, because you've matched at an integrity value principle level. So for me, that I guess now I can say I think that's what I look for when I'm actually engaging in these conversations for board positions, which is, how am I clicking with the executive? Do we have shared values? Um, are we, do I really understand the purpose well? Has it been delivered to me well enough for me to bring my network and my value into the conversation? And can I really help them? How will I help them? So I foresee 6 months, a year into the future, and I'm thinking, I really want to bring value. I don't want a situation where I'm just there and I'm not bringing any value to
Okay.
the company. So
So how many positions do you currently hold, Namrata?
currently I have two.
Okay,
Yeah.
awesome.
And I'm going
Awesome.
to keep it there because there's also the business to take care of. But I am always networking. So having said that, if the right opportunity opens up, then I'll probably consider it. So it's all about continuing the conversation, putting board advisor on my profile. Now I get to do that thanks to Veblen and Grace to Grow. And now it's about, whenever I have these conversations, I do put it on the table when I'm having even calls with my older clients, that when you talk about the next step after you've supported them from a consultant perspective or a vendor perspective, I do actually have this conversation with people where I say, hey, you know what? I think the next step for you now is, I would love to step in as an advisor to continue this journey with you. You don't need me to execute all those tasks anymore, but I do understand your business well enough to support with strategy and networking.
Right.
And that's a new sentence I've introduced into my conversations in the past, I would say 6 months or so.
Wonderful. So Namrata, on the journey from in Grace to Grow as well as the Veblen board as well, what have been some of your biggest learnings?
I think one of the biggest learnings is, it's similar in some sense to engaging in a corporate role at a senior or executive position. I'm talking about executive roles. It all comes down to how you're engaging with your teammates and the people. You're allowing a certain element of the entire engagement is teamwork, but there's another bubble of independent engagement and seeing how you and your network could bring value to the mission of the company. So there's two bubbles happening in parallel. You're working with the other board members to make sure that everybody is aligned, everybody understands each other. You're working with the chairman to make sure that your ideas are being taken on board, providing clarification where necessary. So there's a lot of interpersonal communication happening, because the message that is eventually delivered to the executive team needs to be harmonized. What is not a good situation is if, usually in the board, when people are not aligned on the core message that will be sent to the executive team,
Right.
because you're literally having these meetings once or once every 3 months or so, or once every 2 months. So you really need that homework done as a team in the background, so that the day of the meeting you can really deliver a harmonized message that this is our suggestion, the next step. And then in the other time that you have until the next meeting, you're kind of working on the takings from that meeting, and you're thinking, who can I tap into, or where can I support this particular element of that whole conversation? So that's something that was new for me. How do you speak? What are the rules? What is the conduct? for that particular company's board. The chairman drives that culture. It's kind of a mini company, it's like
Mm-hmm.
there's a culture to your boardroom too. And you have to, it's fun stuff. So all of these would probably be my immediate learnings.
Awesome. No, thank you for sharing that. And you're so right, right, about the collaboration, about the clarity of the messaging so that it can be translated well. It makes perfect sense. So I'm going to turn it around a little bit, Namrata, right? What is one assumption you had on a board before you sat on a board? Um,
I was assuming that I wouldn't be giving too much of input because
hmm,
that was a blocker of mine. But before I
right,
actually sat on the board, I thought I'm probably going to observe more. I am an observant person in general. So I wasn't
right.
thinking that um, I was questioning how much value I would really bring in the immediate. When I say immediate,
Mhm.
probably that first meeting or the first two meetings. And thanks to the chairman and Nam, who was the chairman, and now it's Archita, thanks to their leadership, I quickly realized that no, it's really the environment, and you really start bringing value on day one,
Yeah.
based on the conversations and the topic of discussion on the table. So I guess that was one interesting. It's a positive experience, which was I was a little skeptical on maybe I shouldn't, maybe I should just stay a little quiet and just see how things go. But then I just went for it. I was just like, okay, here's what I propose. Boom, boom, boom.
But it's amazing, and you sharing this, you being a reflective person, as you've shared with us right from the beginning, recognizing when there's a time for reflection and then there's a time to share, and balancing that out, right? So and phenomenal learning. And I think it also speaks to the fact that, especially for women walking onto boards, it's this idea of, do I belong here? Can I add any value? Who am I to sit on a board? And I'm just taking so much value from what you've just shared now, Namrata, that you may think you don't have too much to say, but actually you're bringing so much value and
Oh
put
yeah.
that value into an environment, and there's an opportunity to really shape things in front of you as well. Thank you so much for sharing that with us, Namrata.
Dear Rashni.
So I'm going to take us to just the last part of our conversation as well, Namrata, and I'd love to hear from you. You've said, you were lucky, or Veblen happened to appear at the right time when you were searching as well. Tell us what were some of your experiences on the Veblen board, and what are some of the biggest takeaways you have of being part of the Veblen community?
Well, first of all, it's the most important takeaway in today's age
Mm.
is really honing in on the value of the word community. And
Mm.
I cannot stress this enough because this is for the first time I've seen communities being developed the way that we are developing them now. And it's a whole different approach to networking because networking previously used to be in-person events, attend a webinar, or try to find sessions after an event where you're trying to find one person, two-person. But the whole idea of community and the kind of platforms being designed to help people, like-minded people, come, connect, and then engage. I think
Mm.
that's at a different level, and we're seeing a whole different trend develop here. So with Veblen, it's community. It's you have the opportunity to learn not just from the program, as I mentioned, but you have so many business-minded people. You have so many other entrepreneurs. In my case, you have so many other people you can tap into even for your own needs, and you can be that service for someone else as well. And when you have like-minded people collected in a single community, it's like magic can happen. So one of the things from that Veblen standpoint was it's just a very positive community, and people want to help each other. They genuinely do, and they are. So you have people starting their businesses or already owning businesses who put their businesses for board positions. That's a very unique approach, which is a smart idea because I can, at any point in the future when I'm ready, I can put my company up and look in the Veblen community to find the right people to suit the certain need that I require from my board. And then it also gives you access from external companies like Boardio and other opportunities which is synced with Veblen. There are great partnerships developing where you get access to so many more opportunities and networking, again, the value of community. So I think Veblen's doing a great job in building this as well as it grows. And the second thing I would say is, like I said, like you said, like the right thing at the right moment. Yeah, you need to really um, put your mind to it. So it's the part that I missed out is I bought a book 6 months before when I was in that executive role, and the day that I felt I should be on a board, I actually bought a book by Dembisa called How Boards Work. And that was my journey on I'm gonna get on a board someday, and you have to really put your mind to it, and then it literally, like they say, it does manifest if you really keep thinking about it enough and you keep putting a little efforts into it. And I literally have this book right next to me, and I kind of laugh every day when I see it in my library that, look at me, I actually bought the resources before I actually executed on it. And it literally just came on my lap, and it was in the perfect form of Veblen. So I'm glad that I took that decision. I think I still have a long journey to go. Of course, the goal is let's go for paid board memberships. That's the best achievement, but I'm not in a rush in the sense that there's so much more to learn. There's so many more people to meet. When the right opportunity comes, when the right connection happens, the value will be delivered, and it just works
Totally.
out. It really just works out.
I love that. And it's so two big learnings that I'm taking away from you: the value of the Veblen community, the support, the engagement, the cheer, but most importantly, the resources that you get from the community as well. And when you take the right actions, the opportunities will appear.
Yeah.
I love that. And I know we joked about manifesting the opportunity, but that is really true, right? When you take the first step, you're already on the journey towards your goal. Namrata, this has been absolutely fascinating. Hearing so much about you, your journey from dentistry to entrepreneur to board member. I mean, it's an amazing and it's inspiring journey. Learning more about your entrepreneurial journey, but also your innovative spirit
Yeah.
as well, right? I love
It's the
listening
journey
to
of the
that.
self. You figure yourself out the older you get.
100%. 100%. But also, I think, thank you for also sharing with us as well some of your learnings on being on a board, how your value shows and how you need to lean into your value when you are on a board as well. And then bringing us right back to the power of a community, a
Mm,
really strong community, and how you can manifest your own opportunities. It speaks to also one of the principles that Callum speaks to often, right? About ensuring that you have your profile really well done, because it's a first action towards creating an opportunity. Engaging in the right platforms, your LinkedIn presence, how you engage with others, etc.
spend
Really
time, spend
important.
time on it, spend time on it. It's so funny because it took me a while to update my LinkedIn heading because I had to figure out how to put everything I am plus board advisor to find a chat GPT came to this to save me, but I kept at it, and that's the most important lesson. You just have to keep at it, keep figuring out how to improve
Right.
the profile. How do I get board advice to show up earlier in the profile, and
Yeah.
what kind of content should I create? So it's all doable in today's day and age. There's a lot of people wanting to help each other out. The best part is this
Absolutely.
inclusive community.
So, any last parting words for our audience today, Namrata?
Now, I would say if you've already got the nudge to be on a board, you're in the right place, you're with the right environment, just take action and don't think too much about it. It's not as big of a hurdle as you might be thinking it is in your heads. It's actually very doable. The only question is you want to now surround yourself with the people you want to become. So
Oh,
get
I
in
love
there
that.
and you'll find your way.
Awesome. Namrata, it has been wonderful to have you as a guest on Candid
Thank you,
Coffee,
Arvashni.
and incredible insights, a wonderful journey. And I'm going to leave our listeners with something you said earlier on, where you said it's about building grit, right? And times you're going to have some setbacks. Sometimes things are not going to go as quickly as you want it to go, right? But how do you build that resilience within yourself to drive towards that overall goal? And Namrata, I think you are an example of that.
Or
So
you, Arvashni. I look up to you. You're definitely my example. But happy that we're bringing that chain forward. We need to have these conversations.
absolutely. Exactly. Well, thank you so much, Namrata, for joining us today. And it has been wonderful to have you as a guest.
Same here, Arvashni. Thank you so much.